napenda Kiswahili sana, na kwa hivyo naomba kila mtu tujifunze Kiswahili.
Ndugu watazamaji, katika video iliyopita niliahidi kwamba huyu dada Mganda ambaye anaenzi Kiswahili, anakipenda, anajifunza na anajitahidi kidogo anachokijua awashirikishe wengine, ningemleta kwenu ili aseme uhusiano wake na Kiswahili ulianzaje, umekaakaaje, umefika hatua gani, na leo anafanya nini. Sasa maongezi ya leo yatachanganya lugha mbili, Kiingereza, Kiswahili. Na wapo wengine ambao hawajui Kiingereza vizuri, lakini naomba mtuvumilie, kwa sababu shabaha ya kipindi hiki si wale wanaojua Kiswahili kama mlivyo wengi wenu, bali wale ambao wako upande mwingine, hawajui Kiswahili, wanasikia mambo ya Kiswahili. Wengine ni jirani zetu, wengine wako mbali na Tanzania, lakini wangependa kujifunza Kiswahili. Sasa tunamleta huyu aweze kuwahamasisha, kuwatia moyo na kuambia inawezekana, kwamba yeye pamoja na kwamba hakukulia katika jamii ya Kiswahili, ameweza kupenda Kiswahili, akajifunza Kiswahili, akatafuta hata fursa ya kufundisha wengine Kiswahili. Kwa maana hiyo anatukumbusha sisi kwamba Kiswahili ni lulu. Hebu tumfuatilie akijitambulisha, akijieleza kwa lugha ya Kiingereza, na atachomeka hapa na pale maneno kadhaa ya Kiswahili itakapobidi, ili tuone yeye anajua nini na anaelekea wapi na Kiswahili. Namzungumzia binti huyu, anaitwa Ainebyoona Brenda. Karibuni. Welcome, Miss Ainebyoona Brenda. We're having a second session, which is part 2 of the previous one.
Okay.
The first part was used to know who you are, and we really came to understand you are an entrepreneur, you are a hustler, you are so many things in one.
Yeah.
But we promised our viewers that there's something in this lady about Kiswahili. Tell us something about you and Kiswahili.
Okay. I'm so much interested in Kiswahili, and ever since my childhood, I've been so passionate about pursuing Kiswahili. Just like in the previous story, I told you how my offering a medical course and pursuing my medical education, it kind of broke my journey with Swahili, but I love Swahili. I've loved it from the beginning up to now.
How did you start with this love for Kiswahili?
Okay, when I was young, my mom used to tell us stories. She would be inspiring us to study hard and read books and get to somewhere better. So I remember she told us when they were young, during their time of secondary school, they used to get school fees on their own. They would get a lot of produce, crop produce, and so they would exchange food produce with Rwanda. So my mom's place is this side of Kabale, Uganda, where Uganda borders with Rwanda. So they would exchange food produce for money, which the currency for Rwanda, they call it a mafalanga. So she used to tell us we would exchange food produce for mafalanga to get school fees. So one time they were carrying the food produce to take it there. It was sorghum. She was with the brothers. They were going to look out for school fees, and so some army officers from Rwanda came and they stopped them. So they were asking them in Swahili, mnaenda wapi, mnatoka wapi, mnaenda wapi, mnatoka wapi. And actually, if I can say right now, my mom knows those two words in Swahili, unaenda wapi, unatoka wapi. So they could not know what exactly was being asked them. So instead of saying where they are going, they would say where they're coming from. Instead of saying where they're coming from, they would say, so it was sort of confusion and language barrier. what they had was confiscated. They stopped from there. They had to come back to Uganda frustrated. They could not get money for school fees. So it was a bit of an emotional story. So when I was young, she could not tell me, you learn Swahili, you need to know. But from my story, I would believe if they knew Swahili, probably they could not have been tortured. So it got into me. I was like, if chance ever avails, I will learn Swahili. So after pursuing my primary education, and primarily we didn't have chance to study Swahili, but there was chance in secondary. When I reached senior 1, it was compulsory. Then senior 2, there was chance to chop it and offer other subjects which you prefer. But then me, I decided to take it. However, I also had intentions of interacting with people. I was an outgoing person. I like interacting with people, and so I thought if maybe I can take Swahili, it can give me another platform of speaking with people outside my circle of influence. So I learned Swahili from senior 1 up to senior 4. I was so passionate about it. I would consider every day, I would make sure I learned something new to add to my vocabulary. So I would enrich it every day. I would engage with it so much to an extent that I performed it very well. I scored a distinction at O level. Unfortunately, I could not continue with it at A level because, just like I told you, I wanted to offer a medical course, and you could not stroke a science subject in a medical combination. So I had to drop the Swahili, but what I can say, I dropped it not out of good heart, but just because of the Ministry of Health and Education, Ministry of Education guidelines. However, I still treated it precious. All my notes, even up to now, my notes of Kiswahili from senior 1, I still have it. I even have a book, actually, I move with it even right now. I have it in my bag, which I got. It was just a simple translation book, Learner's Guide, English to Swahili. So all those resources, I kept them precious. I didn't know any time that chance would avail and maybe I get to interact with the language, but I said, let me just keep them for the sake. So even when we are under vacation, because when you're under vacation, we are no longer on pressure for books, you're waiting for results. But for Kiswahili, I would just keep revising for me to keep remembering. And where I got so encouraged, there's a time we used to stay at church, and there's a time they brought some builders from Kampala. They didn't know our local language, and they didn't know English.
Which is that local language?
It is Runyankwale, Ruchiga. Some people speak it Runyankwale Ruchiga, but it is more of the same. So these builders, they didn't know Ruchiga, and neither did they know English. So they just knew Luganda and Swahili. And none of us knew Luganda by then. None of us had come to the city. So when they would be wanting something to use, they would come to home and they speak some bit of Swahili. It is only me who would be able to understand, and then I gave them. So if they would come and they want a knife, they would just speak, and then someone comes and tells me, Brenda, kisu, kisu, kisu. So it is only me that would understand their meaning. They want a knife. So I go, I give them a knife. They want food. So some bit of interaction. I realized now Kiswahili is important, because by then it made me, I was like a giant at home. I'm the only person who can speak Swahili. So if I'm not around, they would first call me. They would, Brenda, the other builders have come. They need something. I don't know what they want. Maybe it is water, maji. So some things, by then, I had not taken it so serious. But then I realized it is more important. So I was asking myself, if I happen to move out of this city of Kabale, and maybe I go to Kampala, maybe I go outside Uganda, then it would make sense. So after I had done my medical laboratory technology, just of recent, 1 year, it is last year, early this year, I was viewing a status update of a friend, and then I saw he had uploaded a certificate of was awarded a certificate of completion of a Kiswahili course, and so I was so much interested. I didn't know how best it could be, because I knew he had done a medical course as well. He was doing medical laboratory technology. Actually, I was ahead of him. So I asked him, how did you get this? So he told me, we are learning Swahili online. Actually, you can join. I didn't even want to know how much, where. I didn't ask very, very many questions. What I said, I just said, can you please forward my number? They added me. So he sent me the number of the president, and I called the president. I interrogated him. I asked him.
Which president are you talking about?
The president of the learning center. It was called Star Swahili Learning Center.
Okay.
So this colleague had done the course. So I saw his certificate. So I was impressed. I was yearning to have.
Tell our viewers where that Star Swahili Learning Center is located, and maybe they'll be interested to join.
Okay, Star Swahili Learning Center is a global learning center. It's an international learning center. It is having its headquarters in Uganda, but it is operating so far in 35 countries in Africa. So we teach Swahili to very many people who are interested, and teaching and learning is all for free. And our main goal is to unite Africa, to break the challenge of language barrier, and in line with African Union Agenda 2063, to make sure that we have a global village. We have Africa boundless, because when we have one language, then we can be able to connect and have one goal. So that if I'm here in Uganda, currently as I speak, if I am here in Uganda, if I go to Sierra Leone, if I go to Zimbabwe, if I go to Tanzania, if I go to Kenya, if I go to Cameroon, I have their brothers who can welcome me. So we can be able to unite using one language, and we can have more other avenues that we can use the language, like trade, business. Just like, I'm a hustler. It is so relevant to use Kiswahili. So that is it about Star Swahili Learning Center, and we are looking out to have just Africa as a global village where we can be able to interact and share and exchange ideas without any barriers in the language and trade.
Okay, now what is your level of Swahili so far as we speak? Because it looks like you're so much interested in Swahili. You've been learning Swahili since you were in senior 1. You know some Swahili to some extent.
Comparing to where I want to be, I can say my level of Swahili is still at a junior level. However, there are people who call me mwalimu right now as I speak.
Mwalimu, sasa unawafundisha nini?
Nawafundisha Kiswahili. So they call me mwalimu because they think I have got what they don't have yet.
Okay.
So I may think.
Do you have people who you practice Kiswahili with?
Yes, I do.
Nani?
I have international learners from Zimbabwe, from Cameroon, from Sierra Leone, from Namibia, from Mozambique, from Sudan, to mention but a few. So the audience is more of international, and we practice Kiswahili on a daily basis. We conduct lessons in the evening on Google Meet and WhatsApp. So the interaction is always continuous.
Would you like to engage the viewers with the level of Kiswahili that you know? Like speak Kiswahili for about 2, 3, 4 minutes? Tell them anything you want to tell them in Swahili.
What I can just give them, just to sample them, I can introduce myself in Kiswahili.
Okay, please do.
Jina langu ni Ainebyoona Brenda kutoka nchini Uganda. Mimi ni mtaalamu wa mabara ya matibabu. Napenda Kiswahili sana, na kwa hivyo naomba kila mtu tujifunze Kiswahili. Maybe if I can interpret for someone who doesn't know Kiswahili, my name is Ainebyoona Brenda. I'm from Uganda. I'm a medical laboratory specialist, and I love Kiswahili so much, and I would request each and everyone to learn Kiswahili.
Thank you. One day I was invited to the Star Swahili Learning Center, and I was able to witness how you conduct your classes, and I learned a few things from you guys. Now tell the viewers, what have you been learning there on a weekly basis?
We have a syllabus. Me, I'm a junior in Kiswahili, though I have a big position in the board and management, but we have a team of technical people, lecturers, doctors, people who have had enough experience with Kiswahili, and so they design a curriculum just like any other learning institution, like any learning center, just the same way you can enroll to Makerere University and you're offering a course. If you're offering a course in African languages, maybe Kiswahili or English or any language, they introduce you to a language. There is a curriculum you follow, and there is some kind of syllabus that you're supposed to cover. So we introduce them to Kiswahili from basics. We make sure they get to know how to grade, they get to know about the vocabulary in the different settings, and we make sure we get to understand what their professions are, because we are teaching the working class, and their interest is to interact with Swahili and progress using Swahili in their different working areas and aspects of life. So we make sure we teach them basics for communication purposes, and then we also go ahead to make sure they master the vocabulary of Kiswahili that they can use to prosper, to progress in their working areas and different arenas of life.
Okay, but it looks like you study Kiswahili in English. That's the lingua franca that you use as a medium of instruction among yourselves, right?
We have categories. We have people who study Kiswahili from English, and then we have other groups who study from Swahili from French. Countries like Comoros, countries like Rwanda, countries like Burundi, Benin, those countries, they use French. So when they're studying, they study independently. Only that when we are graduating, even the exam, they will do the same exam, but the other one will be in French, and then this is in English. Okay. But when they're graduating, they all graduate together.
When are you graduating?
We are graduating in November, and I'm also among the graduates.
How many are you?
The number is close to 100.
Okay.
Yeah, combining the French group and the English group.
Okay.
However, we have another cohort that is still undertaking the studies. So for them, their graduation will be in March. So our programs are continuous.
Would you let us know a few Swahili words that you command, so that you have been learning in the last few weeks?
If I'm to tell you the Swahili words I know, there are a bit more that I cannot only say them right now. Maybe just to tell you the few vocabulary that I've added to my Swahili of recent.
Okay. And
I've utilized SK Media. I credit it for that. Every time I watch SK Media, I'm looking up for something new. The very first word I learned from SK Media, which made me so happy, was hospitali alpha. I was a medical worker, and I didn't know about a regional referral. And I don't even remember if maybe in the 4 years of study, they ever taught me about that. Even the course, when I was doing the course with Star Swahili, I didn't interact with it, but when I found it on SK Media, I was like, wow, this is amazing. Something else I found, Mlatibu. I'd been a coordinator, the chief coordinator for Star Swahili Learning Center, but I didn't know Mlatibu Mukuru. So when I found it on SK Media, I was like, each day is worth learning. So, and so many other words I've learned, like Mutan. The last weekend I learned the street is called Mutani, and actually I was finding it fun. So if I'm meaning on the street, it is Mutanini. I was like, Swahili is more interesting.
No, in fact it is Mtaani, that ni.
Yes.
Ni represents something like in there.
So a street, if you're not...
is mtaa.
Muta.
Yeah. When you put ni at the end, that means you're in the mtaa.
Oh, that's amazing.
So mtaani means in the street.
I think
in
the street.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. I actually wanted to ask, I wanted to react in the comment section, but I just got caught up. But has been having it on mind. I was like, okay, I'm going to find it more about it. So that is how it has been interesting. My journey of Swahili is still interesting, and me, I want to reach a level where I can be able to explain scientific concepts in Swahili. That is when I will acknowledge and say I've learned Swahili.
But now one thing, you need to practice speaking Swahili, because that's the only way you can have your proficiency, mastered.
Yeah, I utilize every chance I happen to get. Any chance at my exposure, I utilize it. Just like I told you, I'm a hustler. I have customers in Kenya, I have customers in Tanzania. And actually what gave me a drive to learn this Swahili very fast is because I have customers in Tanzania and they struggle with English. So I was doing it to their favor that I learned Swahili so much faster and to be able to interact much more. So even when I'm interacting with them, I know my Swahili is still inadequate and they know I'm learning, so I make sure I engage them in Swahili and they be able to give me feedback. If they send me feedback and I don't know, I first research and then I give back feedback. They be like, hey Brenda, one of them was inviting me to go and teach Swahili in Tanzania. He even said, we have insufficient, so you can come and teach Swahili. Thought I'm an expert, but I'm doing my best to learn every day and interact with it. I have friends in Kenya, and any friend of mine who knows Kiswahili, they know I'm so passionate about learning, and I think actually you are among them. If you had not known I'm learning Swahili, I'm pursuing it, we could have not had this interaction, I'm guessing.
Right, you're right. But now, mind you, most of your viewers right now are Swahili speakers. Do you have anything to tell them? In English and then in Swahili.
Something to tell them in English?
Yeah, they listen to you.
And Swahili. Yeah, and actually I was thinking, before I forget, because I was just thinking you have your viewers who view your channel in Swahili and they don't know Swahili. I was just thinking we can even teach them Swahili. It's just an idea. I thought about it. I wanted to sell it to you, and what I can say is Swahili is a very important language. For me, the day I realized Swahili was so important, I call it a language of angels, because I realized it has gained a lot of global recognition. To find that Swahili is among the 10 languages that are spoken widely globally, it is not something small. Swahili has gained recognition that it is taught in more than 100 institutions in the United States of America as part of the African languages, and it is one of the UN languages and still African Union languages. And actually the African Union, or the United Nations General Assembly, gave it special recognition that they were looking out for days to give to the United Nations languages, and they gave it 7th of July. So 7th of July every year is the World Kiswahili Day. So when I found out those facts, I realized Swahili is not something that someone should take for granted, and so that's where I gain my drive. I'm going to learn Swahili until when I cannot learn it anymore.
Can you say something in Swahili to them?
To all my listeners, nawapenda sana na wakaribisha kwa Kiswahili Learning Center tujifunze lugha ya Kiswahili.
Asante sana.
Karibu sana.